I need my panel to weigh in on this. I got a good one today. Heidi Przybyla, a senior political reporter for USA Today and MSNBC political analyst. Jason Johnson, a politics editor at TheRoot.com and professor at Morgan State and an MSNBC contributor. And Caitlin Huey-Burns, a political reporter with Real Clear Politics. Heidi, I got to start with you. Please, what does the president want? We're going to start with Dreamers. Explain it to me.
That's pretty unclear at this point. I mean,
it's baffling
last night,
to me.
With it, just like Kristen said, it's like he put a gun to Congress's head, and then a few hours later, he emptied the chamber of all of the bullets and said, forget about it. Let's take everybody back and remind them of why we're here in the first place. It was because Congress couldn't get its act together
but he also
to pass some kind of
He also completely
reform.
punked his own Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions gets up there, and it's all about violating the law, what the Obama administration did, and suddenly President Trump is talking about his big heart and his love for those people. Like, Congress, we know he loves to punch them. We know he loves to stick it to them. But Jeff Sessions, why have Jeff Sessions go out there and make that statement?
You'd think maybe he would have looked at the polls beforehand. Who knows what was behind this, why he got such cold feet. Maybe it was that this was the moment when so much opposition mounted. Stephanie, if you remember, all of the groups that came out, business groups, the Catholic bishops, 2 former presidents issued statements. It's possible that he just did not foresee the overwhelming negative response on this. But he is also in an impossible situation here. He's caught between his base and between the overwhelming public support, the majority support for maintaining this program. He wants Congress to try and maybe come up with some kind of a solution, but he himself has also said that he wants to have this border wall put in, and the question is whether he's going to hold these dreamers hostage to try and get his border wall accomplished, because the fact of the matter is there are votes in this Congress to get something done on a clean DACA bill. When you put together all of the Democrats, they would all support this, as well as all of the Republicans who in the past have supported this, guys like Jeff Flake, Lamar Alexander, John McCain, Lindsey Graham. The problem is the leadership is not going to allow it. The question is, what kind of demands are they going to make in order to get a deal done? Is it going to be some kind of border security, stepped up border security that maybe the Democrats will support? Or is the president himself going to throw down the gauntlet? I mean, he was just a couple of weeks ago threatening to shut down the government over his border wall. So these dreamers are about to potentially be the hostages.
Except he never really throws the gauntlet down. He just throws it out there that he could do it. And getting himself boxed in between GOP leadership and his base, he chose to put himself there. Jason, Heidi brought up a good point. Maybe the president didn't look at the polls. According to the New York Times, maybe the president didn't look at what the DACA, the Dreamers program, is. I want to share this quote. As late as 1 hour before the decision was to be announced, administration officials privately expressed concern that Mr. Trump might not fully grasp the details of the steps he was about to take, and when he discovered their full impact, would change his mind. This is mind-blowing to me. We saw Jacob Soboroff talk to college students who were dreamers yesterday, saying, I'm ready to fight for my life. Right. I don't know what my future holds. And the president doesn't know what the program is? What?
This doesn't shock me, right? Because this is the difference between the ideologues in the White House and a president who spends most of his time on Twitter and doesn't actually read, right? So he took the box and dumped it out and said, I'll figure out the instructions later, because that's what this is. We want to keep out Muslims.
That makes kids cry.
Well, exactly, it does. But he's a big child when it comes to this sort of thing. I want to keep out the Mexicans. Oh, wait, they're already here. I want to keep out the Muslims. Oh, wait, they're already here. They're already dying, saving people against Hurricane Harvey. They're already serving this country. This is the disorganization of this presidency in general. And here's the thing. When you spend all of your time on these big symbolic Chef Arpaio, we're going to keep out the brown people stuff, you don't get your real job done. And that's why Congress has to cram in the next month to do everything from tax reform to the debt ceiling to the ACA reform, and they don't have the time to do it because they got no leadership from the president.
All right, well, the president, Caitlin, continues to want to kick it over to Congress. And Marco Rubio said yesterday, president can't do that. Lindsey Graham said, you got to get on the phone. You got to make calls. What do you want? Is Rubio right?
Well, you know, think about the Republican Party before Trump became their nominee. A lot of people said that Trump kind of introduced these divisions on immigration. That's not quite accurate. This is a Republican Party. I covered this immigration bill. It didn't even make it to the House. The House didn't even pick it up. You had Republicans in Congress who are still there now, voted against that DREAM Act in 2010. Yes, the politics is certainly shifting, and we're certainly seeing that on the Democratic side. Those Democrats who voted against the DREAM Act before are likely to support it now. But what the president is doing here is trying to have it both ways, making that legal argument after the pardon of Arpaio, after issuing executive orders on an immigration ban, doesn't really sit well even with Republicans in his own party. And then to say, well, disband that legal argument, to say that he might do something in 6 months, what does that suggest? And what is the pressure that he is putting on these members of Congress is not quite clear what that is.
All right, Heidi, despite the sheer size of Congress's to-do list, like, let's get serious. Immigration reform does sound, of their whole list, like something they could be willing to tackle. Do you think there's any shot something gets done here?
You know what? I'm going to say for one of the first times in the past 8 years that I've covered Congress, I think maybe they might be able to get something done. Just because if you look together, take an aerial view of what's going on here, Stephanie, in terms of the Freedom Caucus as the group that has really thrown the sand in the gears of Congress for the past decade. They are potentially now being marginalized both on the debt ceiling, because you have the White House, which we're expecting later today, to say, look, we need to attach this to the Harvey relief. Freedom Caucus, step aside. If the same thing happens with a DACA compromise, where Republicans are forced out of the moral imperative of getting something done to work with Democrats, again, by definition, that faction that has been so disruptive to our politics will get marginalized, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get something done.
Heidi Przybyla channeling Jim Carrey in the feature film Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance. We're going to take a break. Up next.